Hey, this is Mark Williams of Swine Barbecue. Today I'm going to show you the recipe I'm cooking for the 4th of July. It's a good sweet and spicy rib we're going to call Firecracker ribs. We're going to be cooking today on a new slow and sear kettle. I can't wait to see how this pit cooks. Let's get started. So today we're cooking on the slow and sear kettle. I got the slow and sear attachment in, filled up with some royal oak charcoal. I'm going to go ahead and get the tumbleweeds lit. Got us a couple of chunks of pecan in here for a good smoke. And then we're going to fill our water trough up. All it takes is a quart of water. That's going to put a little moisture in the cook chamber, help maintain them lower temps we want. We'll leave the lid off till that little corner of coals gets to going good. Then we'll get the lid on and get our damper set. So you can tell we got a good little bed of coals. We'll go ahead and get the lid on it. Put the vent opposite of fire. We'll go ahead and open the top all the way up and the bottom. Once the pit gets up to about 250, 275, I'll check the vents back. We're actually going to use a smaller vent on these SNSs called the smoke hole. That way we can really control those temps, keep it below 300. Should be a good, easy cook. So while our SnS kettle comes up to temp, let's check out these ribs. We got some St. Louis cut spares. Membrane's already been pulled. Of course, you can tell they got good marbling all the way across. I did take the time and square them up just a little bit just to make them more uniform so they cook better. So the first thing we're going to do is get some seasoning on them. First layer I'm using today is, of course, Swine Mississippi grind. It's a good savory seasoning. We're gonna get a pretty good coat on the backside, pat it in. So the next rub we're using is a good buddy of mine, Gulf Coast Smoke. They're Southern Hospitality. Get a good layer of this. It's gonna bring a little sweet, and of course it's gonna bring the heat. And if you're like me today, the wind's blowing, it's gonna get in your eyes and your nose. Flip them over, we got the top side, we're doing the same thing. First layer of Mississippi grind for that savory, a little bit of citrus. Got bell pepper and onion, all the good flavors that go great on pork. Next, coming back with the heat. Touch the edges up if you need to. We're gonna give this SnS kettle a few more minutes to come up to temp. We're gonna be cooking about 275 to 300 with some pecan chunks on that royal oak charcoal. Can't wait to try these ribs. So this SnS kettle's coming right up on 275. I'm gonna open our smoke hole, and then I'm gonna close the regular vent all the way and use this just as an inlet. That way we can maintain them lower temps. Got that good pecan smoke rolling. We're gonna get the ribs on. I'll place them right here in the middle of the rack, away from the coals. Squinch them up just a bump. However you lay them in here is exactly how they're gonna cook. That's a pretty slab of ribs. I'm very impressed with that color from Gulf Coast Smoke. Get the lid right back on, leave the vents set just how they are. We'll check on them in an hour. So these ribs have been on the SnS kettle for about an hour. We're gonna see what they look like. We got good even color. Still a little wet on top, so I'm not gonna spritz them. I've been amazed how well it's easy to maintain temp. It's been running 275 like a dream. Still got a good bit of wood left. We're gonna get the lid on, keep on cooking. So these ribs have been on the SnS kettle for a little over 2.5 hours. I did spritz them about 30 minutes ago. We're going to take a peek at them, see if they need spritz again. I'm going to go ahead and spritz since we're already in here. Make sure to hit them high spots where the bark's drying out a little bit. Hit all the edges while we're in here. I'm going to give them a twist, just like so. Hit that edge one more time. Get the lid back on. Now we're shooting for these ribs to be done in about 4 hours. At the 3.5 hour mark, I'll start checking for doneness. We'll see where we're at. We're gonna take them about 205, 207 to get them good and tender, and they'll be a mighty fine rib. So the ribs have been on for about 3.5 hours. I checked on them a few minutes ago. They're starting to get a little more color than I want, so we're gonna go ahead and get them out and get them in the wrap. Got a good dark mahogany. That's the perfect color I want on these ribs. So all we're gonna do, place them face side, meat side down. Hit them with a little vinegar sauce. Got some heavy duty foil. Get them wrapped up and right back on the pit. Let them go for about 45 minutes. They should be done by then, and it'll be time to get them out, get a spicy glaze on them, and enjoy these ribs. So these ribs have been on the SnS kettle for a total of 4.5 hours. They got to be good and tender by now. So we're gonna open them up, take a little peek. Oh yeah, see you got some good disintegration right here. Let's see. Very, very soft. Those are done. So I'm gonna sit these out. gently pick them up. Go right back on the pit. Still keep them meat side down. Got a little bit of Mike's Hot Honey. Give them a drizzle. Use a little bit of that vinegar sauce that we put on there already. Brush that in. Give that just a few minutes to sit. Get the lid back over it. We'll let that go for about 5 minutes. Let that honey sit on there. Then we'll flip them over, do the same process to the top side. It's been 5 minutes. Get in here and gently flip these ribs over. Got great color on that side as well. Same process. Little Mike's Hot. Get that brushed in. We're not going to leave this on the pit real long because that honey will burn really easy. Just a little bit more of this Killer Hogs vinegar. Let these go for 5 minutes and they're going to the cutting board. So these ribs have been glazing for about 5 minutes. Time to get them off. Go to the cutting board, let them cool just for a few minutes, and then we're going to be cutting into them. So these ribs have been resting on the cutting board for about 15 minutes. Just as a quick recap, we started with a slab of St. Louis cut spare ribs. Got that Gulf Coast smoked Southern Hospitality hot rub on them and followed it with a little bit of Mississippi grind. We got them on our SnS Kettle, let them cook till we got the color we wanted, and wrapped them with that vinegar sauce. Once they hit about 205, got good and tender, we glazed them with a little bit of Mike's Hot Honey and that vinegar sauce, and you can see we got a great shine. I know it's gonna have a good bite. I can't wait to try this rib. So we're gonna dive right in. I'm gonna cut them right across right here. Cutting like hot butter, tender as can be. Get me one right out of the middle. That dude is packed full of moisture. I wish y'all could see this. I mean, that is excellent. This rib here is packed full of moisture. Got a good smoke ring. That's pretty as can be right there. See if we can get us a good bite. Perfect texture. Man, that's a good rib. That rib right there is packed full of flavor. Got an excellent smoke flavor from that pecan. As you can tell, it's tender as can be. Of course, it's got that heat, which is what I love when it comes to eating a rib at home. This is gonna be the recipe I cook on my 4th of July. That's a wrap for today at Swine Life. This rib right here is packed full of flavor, got a good heat. I love the smoke flavor. Y'all gotta give this recipe a try. If y'all got any questions, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram. And as always, like and subscribe to the channel, and we'll see y'all next time.